Y'all think too small, I got big dreams. You just starting, I'm way ahead at the end scenes. Started reading and dodging all of the quick schemes. Money like your Spotify, boy, I got 10 streams. And I'm still looking for more. My people, they got a soar, I'm putting that on the Lord. Ain't accepting, ignore, just kicking down all the doors. Guarantee you, boy, if I ask for it, it's gotta be real big. I gotta make it just for my kids and for their kids' kids. That's wealth years and years. Promise my brother soon as he out and finish this bid, we finna do it bigger than anybody ever did. The odds is real big, jobs that's real big. Satan trying a little, my God is real big. Stayed up on the grind and the cards is real big.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited. Look, as always, Fireside Chat, man. Always to drop knowledge and share information and get people to thinking. It's time for us to wake up and start thinking about our futures and where we're going, what we're doing. If you've not been chiming in, last week you missed last week. I said I want to apologize, but I wanted to make sure I bring it back this week and talk about. Got a lot of DMs about first-time home buyer. Before I start, what I always like to do is talk about. Take at least 2 minutes and talk about motivation and inspiration, guys. Your biggest and your biggest fan and your biggest motivator, and the person that will either push you forward or hold you back, is the person that you wake up and see in the mirror and face in the mirror every day. I want to challenge you to start thinking about how you wake up and what you say to yourself and what you tell yourself, because your life and your altitude is dictated by what you, not by what everybody else. What everyone say about you don't even matter. It's about what you say about you and what you tell yourself. Because I bet you a lot of people look in the mirror and they don't even tell themselves how great they are when they wake up in the morning, or give thanks to God for allowing them to wake up and then saying, I am. The word I am is a transition word. When you say I am sick, guess what? You're transitioning to be sick. If you say I am poor, you're transitioning to be poor. But the moment you say I am wealthy, now you're transitioning to be wealthy. I am successful, you're transitioning to be successful. Let that sink in. You have to motivate yourself because nobody else will. It's time for us, as I said in the beginning, to wake up. We've got to take over our power and start injecting into the universe what we want, and telling God how what we using His words of whatever we ask for, He shall give in our hearts. So again, I want you to start thinking about the gratitude that you give, but then more importantly, how you're telling and motivating yourself, because you're the only one can change your direction today. And it's time. We got a great segment today that we're going to jump into. We were talking about first-time home buyer, but also not just first-time home buyer, but we're going to be talking about buying that first investment property and some cool programs. If you have not been tuning in, go back and listen to some of the previous Fireside Chats, but also check us out on YouTube, and then follow me on Instagram. We post a lot of good things out there, a lot of good content on Instagram and also Facebook. Follow me on all platforms, The Christopher Dennis, and see what we're talking about. But again, if you're not chiming into the groups and things that we're talking about, you're missing out. So get ready for exciting play today. I got an exciting guest I'm going to bring on in a second. She has been an inspiration all across Charlotte. But again, I want to get her on and have her drop some nuggets on the topic today. And if you got questions out there and you're watching, DM me. I'm watching the comments. I see them coming in now, so I'm seeing a few come in. So if you got questions or you got comments, hit me up in the DM and let's talk about it. I got a few people join live with me as well. So I'm going to try and bring them on as a part of the conversation as we get deep into it. But I really want to make sure that we're sharing information that you're looking for, and that's going to help change your lives and create that generational wealth and that legacy. Again, welcome to the Fireside Chat. Give me a few minutes. We'll be right back. I'm ready and I'm excited. I hope you are. Hi, everyone. I'm back. I told you. I'm so excited. Look, but I'm going to tell you, if you're out there today, I need you to lean in real close, because we're going to be talking about something that's on everyone's mind about when to buy, what to buy, and being a first-time home buyer. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the investor side too. The reason why I want to talk about the home buyer set, because I've had a lot of people DMing me about the fact that they don't actually own their first home right now, and they're looking at investments. So I wanted to make sure I set the narrative and talk about the first buying your first home, what that looks like, and I always ask how you feel about that. I'm gonna tap into it today, but I really got a special guest that I want to bring on. She's a wealth coach, known Mary for years. If you don't know this young lady, I promise you by the end of this session you'll want to get to know her. But I'm gonna let her tell her story and chime into who she is and what she does and how she's been changing the landscape around financing and home buying and all the really great programs that are out there. So, Mary, tell them who you are.
So, I am huge in the financial world. I started out in real estate 20 some years ago, ended up in mortgages after that because I figured out I loved helping people put their puzzles together and figure out the things that everyone else said that they couldn't do. Because anything that you dream and think, I believe is possible as long as you've got that hope and you've got that drive to make it come true. There's nothing that's going to stop you except yourself. And so that led me into more of coaching business owners, coaching entrepreneurs, coaching people on how to get a hold of their finances, and took me into this whole spiral where I get to teach for a living now, which is what I love. I love helping people take that next step. And wow. I heard Chris giving his motivational points earlier, and it brought me to a point, he said, whatever you think you can do, right? So manifest good things. Jim Carrey, for those of you who follow, actors and all of that stuff, before he made it big with Dumb and Dumber in 1985, he wrote himself a check for $10 million. And he knew that one day he was going to be able to cash that check and make good on it. And guess how much he made off of his first movie, Dumb and Dumber? $10 million. So think big, guys. Don't think small.
I just put that as facts out there because if you guys don't, I'm going to post one day my vision board. I'm going to scare some of you guys because everything I've been doing the last 10 years has been on my vision board. If you don't have one, get one. We'll talk more about that in the next fireside chat, but I promise you, it's one of the key things. Your affirmation, what you say and what you speak is key. But man, I want to point out one thing you said because it's taboo. Everyone talks about this puzzle, the taboo statement around, I want to buy a home. Is it the right time? What am I doing? What makes it so complicated? But tell me, break it down for me. Give me what have you seen from the what's one of the first things you'd say to someone that's looking to buy their home? And I'm gonna put some stuff in the chat too. But what's one of the first things you'd tell someone about buying a home? Being a first-time home buyer.
It's always a good time to buy. So basically, people ask, even from first-time buyers to investors, is this a good time? Is it a good market? It is never a bad time to buy a home. A house is something that is tangible, that's going to grow in value. The market may come and go. It may dip at times. Rates may go up. But one thing you can bank on, your house will be your biggest asset. Whether it's the one that you live in or one that you're investing in, it is your biggest asset because the market's always going to come back around, and it comes around full force. And I'll tell you, in 2009, we had one of the largest crashes of all times. And it was a hurtful time to get through. And people were still buying houses. That was like one of the greatest times because you could get, half price houses. They had lake houses, $1 million homes that were selling for $200,000 and $300,000. People who took advantage of that time when the market bounced back, 14, 15, they had a boatload of equity that they had something to do with. It was something tangible that they could either sell the property for a higher price than they paid on it. They could take that equity out and reinvest it in other things. They could start businesses with the money. There's so many opportunities for them for taking advantage of it. So it's never a bad time. The only thing I can say is you are shooting yourself in the foot if you do not own, because whether you own or you are buying your house, you're going to pay rent. So are you going to pay rent for yourself for something that you own, or are you going to pay off somebody else's mortgage?
That's the key thing right there.
That's food for thought.
I tell people all the time, I own a bunch of houses, but the funny thing about it is it's all about the timing. And when you buy, And the fact that that last statement, either you're going to rent and pay off someone's mortgage, or someone's going to be paying up your mortgage. And I think it's about opportunity to create a blessing. I always tell people about the blessing piece. And Mary, timing is one thing. I bought, people have my portfolio. I bought predominantly all my homes starting back in the early 2000s when people weren't really trying to buy in certain neighborhoods. I went and I bought. And so, the catastrophic piece of that is that a lot of the homes I bought were at 25 to 45,000. So I never really paid over 135 for a house up until last year was the first house I bought that was around 150. So I'll tell you, timing is everything. If you think the value is going down, they're only going up. So same houses now that were 45,000 are now 200,000 plus. So timing is now, and you're not going to see them go down in value. You're going to see the prices continue to go up. So if you're thinking about it, now is the time. If you're listening, this is where you want to come to get that information and get these key nuggets that drill in. And on that screen it says never a bad time to buy houses by Mary. We just cloned that one. So there you go, Mary. So let's jump into
And
go ahead.
I was going to say there's so many tax benefits to being a homeowner that it really is. It makes your money work for you more. So you definitely want to take advantage of any opportunity that comes your way.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it, man. Tell me about So I'm a first-time home buyer. I want to buy my first home. I'm excited. I've done some of the key things. I'm gonna put in the chat, into the chat, 5 things you want to try and do in looking at buying your first home. So if you look in the chat, you'll see it in the chat. But I want to ask you a question. I've done the pre-work. I found a great home. Let's talk about the financing. What do I do? What programs are out there? I've saved up a little bit of money. How much money do I need to save up? And then tell me about any programs that can help me as a first-time home buyer overcome the hurdle of that.
So for first-time buyers, guys, financing first and foremost, you've got several different types of loans out there. There's an FHA loan that's not as credit astringent, and it's great for first-time buyers because you can put a low down payment in. It's like 3.5% down. So if you're spending $100,000, just using easy numbers, it's $3,500. And then you have conventional. So when your credit's more established and you've got, the higher credit scores, conventional is a great product because a first-time buyer can put as little as 3% down. And then you have the VA loans for our veterans out there that gives you 100% financing. And if you're outside of city limits, there's also USDA loans that are 100% financing. So all of those are great programs, but to Chris's point, he says, I've saved a little money, which, we hear this a lot because people get afraid that they don't have enough money to purchase. But there are tons of programs out there that will pair with any of those loan products to help you out. You've got every state's got a housing finance agency. North Carolina is, one that I'm partial to since we live here, but they do a $15,000 program and a 3% program. So they can give you 3% of the loan amount. So if you're financing conventional $97,000 out of $100,000, they're going to give you 3% of that 97, and that helps to bridge that gap for your down payment. The $15,000 covers your down payment and can go towards closing costs. So if you have a little bit of money saved, that's a great program to really minimize what you're going to need out of pocket. And guys, they have income limits, but the income limits right now are $102,000 a year. So that covers a lot of people where before we were handcuffed because the limits were much lower. And then they have tax credits that you can kick in with these programs that give you up to $2,000 a year. So if you need that little bit of extra bump in your income to qualify for the house that you really want, that can make a difference because a lender, depending on which program they pair you with, might be able to add that to your income when they're qualifying. And then aside from that, each city has different programs that they do. The city of Rock Hill in South Carolina gives you $5,000. The city of Gastonia has one that gives you, I think it's $8,000. It's been a while since I've used that one. And then House Charlotte, for those of you that live in the greater Charlotte area, the city of Charlotte limits. You can get $10,000 through House Charlotte if you're in that 80% median income bracket. which a household with one person can still make $55,850. So those are pretty good income limits to still qualify. And that
Hold on
program
one
can
second.
also partner.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll pause for 1 second because I want to cut you off. She mentioned about AMI. That's the average median income. We talked about these terms. I'll post something out there. So I don't want to go over nobody's head. But a lot of these programs are tied to your income. So there are ways to assist and help. So just make sure if a term comes up, you don't get it, DM me and I'll drop it in the chat to make sure that you don't miss out on the key information, because understanding some of the terms can trip you up sometimes.
Yes. And, we talk about this day in and day out. So sometimes I forget to explain what I'm talking about. But guys, these programs are phenomenal. And a lot of them you can piggyback one to the other. So like the House Charlotte program piggybacks with another program called CPLP. And the CPLP stands for Community Pool Loan Partners Program. It's put on through North Carolina Housing, and it gives you up to $30,000. So if your income is for a household of one is below $55,850, you can use both programs together in the city of Charlotte, which means you really don't have to have a lot saved. They require that you have $1,000 to your name. Most people have that. And by the time you pay for an appraisal, you've already invested that into your home. That money now takes care of your down payment. It takes care of closing costs. And sometimes there's excess where we can lower loan amounts so that you're financing less, and that helps your payment out. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do where people think, I can't buy now. I don't have the money. Talk to a lender and see what programs they have. And if one lender doesn't have it, not all lenders have the same programs out there. Talk to another one. Guys, you can have your credit pulled when you're qualifying for a home mortgage. You can have your credit pulled up to 5 times, and it only counts as one hit within a 15-day window. So it's only going to hit your credit score one time, because they know that you're going to look for the best program, the best rates, and what's going to work for your situation. And, if you've got someone that's going to shut you down and say, oh, you don't qualify right now, don't take that as you don't qualify. And I'll tell you, some of these programs, believe it or not, will go down to a 500 credit score. The VA loan, I had someone that I approved 100% about 2 years ago, and they had a 504 credit. They had extenuating circumstances. It wasn't because they were bad people, but hurt in the line of duty and wasn't able to work for a while. They went from 2 incomes down to 1 income. We were able to show all of this to an underwriter, and we got them approved. So
how important is it? How important is it? That's a great topic. Great point. How important is it to kind of research lenders to find out matter of fact, how do I find the right lender when I'm looking about my first home? And then how important is it to do that research versus just going around and getting anyone to pull your credit? Because I think one of the key taboo pieces is I don't want everyone pulling my credit.
Right. And you'll hear the larger companies, Movement Mortgage, Guild Mortgage, they're nationwide companies, but all they do are mortgages, and they do them well. So they're going to have all of your state programs out there. But again, not all loan officers are created equal either. So sit down, call a few of them before they pull your credit, have a conversation with them and get a feel for who they are as a person and what they can do to help you. And if they're not willing to put the time in, don't let them pull your credit, go somewhere else. But ask them about programs, ask them, anything you want to know about your situation and how to get financed. Also, banks, if you've got a banking relationship or a credit union relationship, not all of them have down payment assistance programs available to them, but they do have in-house programs that may not be outside of their lending institution. It doesn't hurt to sit down with a personal banker and have a conversation to see what they have available, particularly credit unions, because a lot of them have some funky, cool programs. And if you're in the public service, a teacher, a police officer, nurse, doctor, firefighter, somewhere where you're in your communities working, a lot of credit unions have hero type programs that are going to give you better terms than just, going to a normal lending institution and saying, I want to buy my first home. So vet your lenders and don't be afraid to have conversations. People are afraid to talk about credit. They're afraid to talk about finances, and it's like the skeletons in the closet. It shouldn't be that way. Have an open conversation and vet the person that you're talking to before you let them touch anything that's going to have to do with pulling your credit or taking a look at your actual income documents, and make sure that it's a good fit for you and find out what programs they have. Then pick two and have them run their numbers against each other. And I'm sorry, Chris, I cut you off.
No, that was right on time. Again, she said pick two and let them run numbers. So you really want to sit back, and this is not only for the first time. I'm gonna start because we're gonna change conversation a little bit going towards investors. But yes, again, have people give you an idea of what your loan's gonna look like, and then have that true conversation. Because I want someone that's going to vet for me behind the scenes financially to really understand my situation, know all my truths, all the things I'm dealing with, so they can when they go to that underwriter, I know they're fighting to get me that loan, to get me that house, and make sure things happen the way it should happen. You want to have advocates behind closed doors, and that's on the first-time side and also the long-term investor side, because I'm never going to deal with someone that's not going to have my best interest, and I think that's a key thing. So when you said that not all loan officers are created equally, I had to put that on the screen. You see it? It's right there. So just make sure that is a key statement. I always tell my team, never play a game if you don't know the rules. Now, one thing I'm going to add to it, Mary, because as an investor, and people say, well, Chris, you've done this 1,000 times. You have a lot of houses, but let me tell you, every time is almost brand new to me when I do it. But one thing is always constant, and I'm going to tell you a simple fact. I'm going to drop a nugget right here. If you lean in and listen closely. Some people may object to it and say no, but I will tell you, get a good realtor. I'm an investor, and I've always used a realtor. And if you want to challenge me on that, DM me. We can have another conversation about it. But I have now. I found a lot of my own properties, but I use a realtor to cross my I's and dot my I's and cross my T's. But for first-time home buyers, your realtor should also know a lot of good programs, because remember, they haven't just worked with you. They're working with a bunch of people solving the same problems, and your problem isn't new. They're all trying to buy houses. So she's worked with they've worked with a lot of other realtors, or I'm sorry, a lot of other loan officers. So they kind of know some of the caveats, and they can give you a good starting point on where you should start to look at your loan. And then you narrow it down to someone you want to work with, and then you work on that finance with that person, and you go from there. That is a nugget. A lot of people will tell you, well, a lot of investors say, no, I'm not working with a realtor. I've always worked with a realtor. I'm just putting it out there. So if you're a realtor out there, you should be DMing me, dropping me some nuggets, sending me some little star bonus, so I get some chats, some funds on Instagram or something. But again, it's the truth. I've always used a realtor to dot my I's and cross my T's, because that's not my specialty. So I'll turn it back over to Mary. So let's talk. Let's jump a little bit, Mary, and talk about, now I got my finances down pat, and I picked my lender. The biggest taboo in the background is now my lender's giving me some terms, and now it's time to go to underwriting. Now, people, I'm gonna tell you, it's not. I didn't say undertaker. I said underwriting, but they kind of operate the same, because the person you talk to in the front, they're carrying all the information. They got your shield and all of your information. They're your supporter, but they got to go meet the undertaker. I mean, the underwriter in the back room, and that underwriter is the one that's is making sure everything, all the I's and T's are dotted and crossed and all that stuff. Tell me, Mary, on the backside, you've been in mortgage. What do underwriters look for, and what are some red flags? I've got some cash. I got some cash my uncle gave me, and it's not documented. I want to use it. The underwriter flags that type. Tell me about.
They're going to flag it. You got to find a way to make that real money. So, to that point, we've talked about down payment assistance, but another way that you can get help with down payment is if you have a family member who can gift you funds. So, you've got cash sitting in the drawer. Maybe you need to slide that to that relative, have them put it in the bank and vet it for 30 days so that we don't see it going in, and have them gift you that money. A direct family member can gift you funds towards your purchase. and it can be used for down payment and or closing costs. So guys, get smart about it. I work a lot with the Asian communities. I'm Asian, and we put cash away. They don't trust the banks when they come here. They slide everything into a drawer or a mattress. And sometimes you have to work with them 2 and 3 years to get them to put the cash where it needs to be so it's countable money. Anything that's a large deposit that is not your payroll check is going to get questioned. And they want to know where the money's come from. Did you borrow it? Did you just pull it out of a drawer? Did you launder it? These things come up, and there's checks and balances for all of that stuff. So to make it a smooth transition, you want to make sure that your money is seasoned in your account for 60 days before you give a bank statement to a lender, because they're going to ask you for 2 months of everything. And so if they see that large deposit going in, the underwriter's going to question where that came from, and then you're going to have to be able to backtrack and document it. If you just stuck cash in there, they're not going to count cash because they don't know where it came from. And guys, if you're selling furniture or, renting stuff out and you've got cash money coming in, vet that money. If you don't have time to vet it, find a relative who can give you a gift. And
so what about the low credit score then? So now my credit isn't as good as it should be, and I'm at the mark. So they said I should have a 630 credit score or whatever the minimum is, and I'm right there at it. What should I do? I'm ready to buy the house. I'm on that borderline of what they're looking for as a credit criteria. Should I write a letter? Should I call somebody? What should I do?
So when you're right there, it doesn't matter if you have stellar credit or you have things on your credit. There's a letter that prints out with your credit report that the lender's going to ask you to fill out. And it's going to have anything that's ever been derogatory or inquiries that have been on your credit. And they want you to give an explanation, what happened here that caused this, and, has this been resolved? Not everything has to be resolved on credit to be able to purchase, unless it's like federal tax liens and stuff like that, because they can put a lien on your house. But normal things that have happened, life happens to all of us. Just be wary about it, and do not go opening new credit. Don't run up your credit cards while you're trying to purchase a home. Don't go put that furniture, 12 months, same as cash, and they tell you it's not going to show up. It does show up, and the underwriter will see it because they do like monitoring throughout the transaction until you close. And so they see all the inquiries and all the different things coming through, and they're going to question it. You don't want anything that's going to change your picture, because it's not always about, maintaining that credit score. Sometimes you're right there at that borderline for your debt to income of what you can afford to buy on paper. And one little thing can change that, and it can blow your whole deal. So be careful with that.
You gotta be. I think that's a key thing. And so that was one thing that kind of I've seen snag people is they're not conscious of where their credit is. Again, I tell you, go out to some of the major credit agencies. You got Equifax, TransUnion, and so forth. Look at and do their credit monitoring. Look at what your not just what your credit score is, but what's the other thing? Your FICO score. Know what those two are, and realize that just because your credit score is at one, that you see a credit score on those creditors screens as this number. Remember, they use different algorithms when they're pulling your credit inside of a lending institution.
Right. And most lenders are going to do what they call a tri-merge credit report. So they're looking at all 3 bureaus. Wow. And when they say that they're looking at your middle score, they're not averaging those numbers out. They're looking to see what each bureau's score is, and whichever one of those numbers comes in the middle, that's the number that they're going to use. And they're using a scoring system. So when you're doing Credit Sesame, Credit Karma, those things, you're not going to see the same score that the lender sees, because those are Vantage scores for consumer education. You see the number go up, you're doing something right. You see the number go down, you need to tweak something or change something. And it's great to show you when new things pop on your credit, because stuff happens. And right now with all the technology, we see a lot of identity theft. So those are great ways to take control of what your picture looks like, but it's not going to be the actual score that the lender sees.
Somebody just
Credit cards. I'm sorry.
Somebody just hit me asking about high debt to income ratio. Tell me about the taboo behind that. I've got a lot of debt. I'm trying to work through some of that stuff. And what do I need to do to kind of offset some of that? And how is that going to affect me when I'm trying to buy the house?
Okay. So that's kind of a loaded question because everybody's got a different income source. But typically what lenders are looking for is that 43 to 45% ratio. Some loan programs will let us go higher than that, but it's what you're bringing in before taxes versus what you've got going out each month. And that would include your new house payment that's coming into play now. So if all of the things, your minimum payments on credit cards, your car payment, any loans that you have outstanding, and your new house payment, if those things total up to more than 55%, it's going to be really hard to qualify. FHA will allow us to stretch up to that number, but you don't want to be house poor either. And that's what the lenders are trying to prevent, is an upside down ratio where you may not be able to afford the house that you're in. Nobody wants to lose their home because they can't afford it. And
I think that's real key, guys. And I think it gets to be real serious when you start looking at it, because again, when you don't know the rules and how you're being judged and how they create a narrative around you, it really puts you at a disadvantage. So I hope that this information is setting you at an advantage, because now you're starting to hear these terms and really kind of diving into how it kind of impacts the people that are making decisions about you in the background that you don't even know about. Again, I always tell people, know the rules. That's why we have to think big, dream big, because I want you to really start thinking about where you are, but then thinking more about where you're going, and then start dreaming big. But that big part is start living big, and that's what we're trying to get everyone to start looking at. But you got to know the rules to play the game. I also dropped in there, so we talked about the credit, we talked about the insufficient funds, making sure you got that know where your finances coming from, and then the high debt, the debt to income ratios. Those are three. Check them out in the chat. I put the whole definitions in the chat so you can have it. So now you've done this piece, you've gotten past the underwriter, and now your loan is in the final stage and you're ready to close on your house. What are some things that may come up at the end of you've been qualified, everything's been done, and you're at that finish line? What are some things at the end that could trip you up that you may want to look at? And I'll give you an example. One being there was some additional damage to the house that the inspector found in the inspection report. You got to get your inspection report. There's some things you got to do there. We haven't talked. I didn't dive into that, but I can pick on that later. But your inspection report came back, and then one scary thing, because you got approved, but then my appraisal came back lower than the value of the house. No one wants to hear that. What do I do there?
All of those are things that come up before final underwriting. And that's why it's key to have a realtor, guys. When these headaches come up, and they do come up occasionally, things happen. You need someone who can speak the lingo and fight for you. And I used to tell people all the time, if you went to court and you were being sued, do you want the district attorney handling your case, or do you want your own defense attorney that's going to talk for you? You want someone who's in your corner, who's got your back. And that's what a realtor does. And not the one that works for the seller, but the one that works for you, that's going to be in your corner. Guys, I've seen all kinds of things come up, and people think, oh, new construction, what can go wrong? I'm going to go into the model home and I'll just deal with their agent. They work for the seller, the builder. They don't work for you. They're fine and they're warm and they're fuzzy when everything's good. But the first time something happens with your home, and I'll tell you, my girlfriend built a home years ago. There was a builder here that was like a mom and pop builder, and the house was gorgeous. The lot was gorgeous. And we did that final walk, and her living room wall curved. And I'm like, what is that? And they said, oh, we put the pipe in the wrong place for her plumbing to run into the kitchen, so we had to bow the wall. And I'm going, that's not acceptable. And they didn't want to redo it. because it was going to cost them money to have to tear that up and fix it the way that it should have been, so that she had a nice flat wall instead of this monstrosity of a wall. And if we didn't have someone in her corner who could speak the lingo, she may have closed on that house the way it was, and it would have been an issue when she went to go sell the house. So you never know what's going to come up, and you need that person who can speak and fight for you. Appraisals come in upside down sometimes. You know, we've been in some crazy times the last couple of years where property values are doing this, and people keep raising, but they were raising too fast. And you never want to buy a house upside down. We buy our cars upside down. We don't want to buy our house upside down. And so you want something that's going to appreciate and grow for you over time. The appraiser comes back and says, oh, the value is $10,000 less. That's where your realtor is going to come in handy, because they're going to go back for you, and they're going to talk to the seller, and they're going to try to renegotiate for you to get that price dropped. And sometimes it's a matter of coming to a happy median if you've got the finances to do that. And I've seen people do that because we've been in those fluctuating times. But guys, don't buy your house upside down if you can afford not to. Let the realtor go to it for you. Things come up on inspections.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
I think we got some lag. I apologize if I overtalk you. I apologize. So I dropped on the screen just in case your appraisal did come at lower. Now let me precursor this, because timing is everything. We talk about timing, because I've been there. I've seen when my appraisal came back lower, and I didn't have time to really fight it, and that really affected my loan to value ratios. I'll talk about that later, but I didn't have time to fight it. So now my loan was lower, but I was able to close the deal, but
I can't hear you, Chris.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
All right. So one of the key things too is that you can basically challenge your appraisal. So if your appraisal comes back a little bit lower than you want to, if you have the time, sometimes you don't have that time, and it gets to be a challenge. But if you do have the time, make sure that you're able to challenge that appraisal. And I think your lender do it a notice as well, and they'll probably do it for you. But make sure you challenge. If you have an issue with the appraisal, you don't think it's warranted or is lower, and if you have comps, again, your realtor will already tell you what those comps are and what they should be. So utilize that realtor to do their job, because they're getting paid. They're getting 3%, 6%, something out there. So utilize that tool. It makes it a lot easier. It takes that work out for you. So again, challenge that appraisal, get it done, get across the finish line.
And guys, sometimes appraisers do miss things. They get really busy at certain times of the year. I had one recently that came back for one of my investors where they missed the entire basement. There was a full finished basement in there, and that's additional heated square footage that made about $100,000 worth of difference. So read through the appraisals, because you do get copies of them. And if you're not sent a copy of it, request it from your lender, because you paid for it. You should have the right to review it. And if you're not sure what you're looking at, that again is where a realtor is going to come in really handy. They're used to looking at that stuff. They pull comps, every day. So they know what to look for when they're reading those appraisals, and they can help you maneuver it. Other things that we see come up are on the inspection side. We don't have x-ray vision. We don't know what's behind the walls, and there could be mold. There could be all kinds of things back there that happen. And an inspector is trained to look for certain things that could be key indicators to work that needs to be done to the home. And, don't read every note that they have, because they're going to put everything down to a cosmetic scratch in the wall. Look at the things that are going to make a difference on the livability of the house.
Don't get too nervous. I've seen reports come back, and I'm like, what is this? This is a new Bible or something? Because it's just that thick. But you have to really pan through it with the eye, with the scope of what is critical and what's issues. And it's for your best interest. I mean, now you know everything's wrong with the house, but everything that you see on that inspection report does not have to be fully repaired right now, and doesn't really impact you buying that home. But if there's something that comes up and says your AC unit is not working, or the water in the house is not heating up because your water heater is 35 years old, those are things you might want to bring up and really look at it. But if it's, I've got some paint chips in the ceiling or on a wall or a small crack, if it's nothing foundational, I wouldn't really worry about it. But again, that's when you chime in with your real estate agent or someone like myself that knows a little bit more about buying homes and really use that knowledge. So Kelly just put on the screen. I had a crazy experience with a builder. Thank God my agent went toe with her. They basically talked a good game and wouldn't put half of it in writing a contract. But I absolutely agree. Always buy as a buyer, use an agent, new or existing. Again, everyone out there knows it, but everyone doesn't always apply it. And so again, I think sometimes realtors get bad stigmata sometimes, but I'll tell you, I've always used one. That's just me. You don't have to follow what I say, but guess what? I know some of the rules that you don't. So I would definitely use a realtor when I can. Hats off to all the realtors out there. I do appreciate all the work you do.
And just like lenders, that's your realtors too.
Yep. Thank you. That's it. Thank them. Because I thank mine all the time. They made me a lot of money. They made me a lot of money too. Jumping ship a little bit, because I know we talked a lot from a home buyer standpoint. Let's talk about from the investor side, because I think, again, not just buying your first home, because it's different buying a home as a first-time home buyer. But now I've got my first home, and I'm an investor. I know the lending changed a little bit, and I'm not going to use your second home. I'm going to say your fourth home, because your second home could be a vacation home and still kind of qualifies as the same thing as a traditional home. But now I got 4 homes under my belt, and I have started to look at now growing a portfolio of holding properties, not flipping, but holding. And again, there's many ways for the homeownership model. But now I want to look at, getting my 4th property. I'm renting it out. I'm creating an opportunity for someone to live. Didn't say making money. I'm creating an opportunity for someone to live. You're responsible. So what is the difference between getting a loan for my first home than getting a loan for my investment property? Is there a difference? Am I looked at differently?
There is a difference, and the down payment is the biggest difference. As an investor, they're going to tell you right off the bat you need a minimum of 20% down, and there's no down payment assistance for that.
Wait, back up. How about you said 20% down plus there's no down payment assistance?
Exactly. So now he just said he's got 4 homes, right? How did we get to 4 homes? Because after this, you become an investor, right? Somewhere in here.
Yep.
So you can buy a house a year as a primary residence. So if I buy a house over here and I've got an FHA loan because I want to put that 3.5% down and get that really low payment, then next year I've got the 12 months requirement. I'm going to buy my next primary home and I'm going to rent this sucker out. But guess what? Now I have equity. You can go get an equity line and take out of your primary home and use that for the down payment. That's the only time borrowed money doesn't count as borrowed, because you have equity that pays that off if something were to happen.
You dropping them nuggets, because I talk about that as in my course. I talk about bird dogging. If you look, I'm gonna tell you, when you're actually building a home, about living in one, then moving to the next one, that's a whole system of plan. I got a whole workshop around that, because that's how I got started. I'll tell you, it's again, know the rules. She just dropped a major gem. If you missed it, I'm not even going back over it. I'll make you go back and watch it. But Mary, that is a key to the game right there. How to get started. Your first 4, I'm telling you, buying your first home is the hardest house you'll ever buy. If you've been around some of the sessions, I'll tell you, Chris, you're at 100 plus homes. Look, let me tell you something. The hardest house I ever bought was the first one. I never seen that much paperwork in my life. I thought I was signing record deals, becoming famous. How many times I signed my name? The more homes you own, and the more you've done this, the less times you have to stroke that pen the way you did when you bought your first. And your fear factor. I always talk about fear. Remember, fear is the absence of faith. When you increase your faith, your fear kind of diminishes. So around like 35 or 40 houses, trust me, buying the house becomes like, what? I'm going to show up for closing. When? What time? I'll get there. So, but anyway, I'm sorry, man. Jumping back on that. Tell me another secret around the difference between the loans between buying from a homeowner and an investor. So we talked about the time frame of buying it. What's
Right.
another key?
Another key would be you can go traditional, full dot, just like you did when you bought your first home, put the 20% down and use Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac products. Before the market that we're in today, that would have been a great way to get a lower rate as an investor. However, there are other loans out there. So you could actually start an LLC or S Corp or C Corp. And as a corporation entity, you're still going to use your personal credit to set the loan up. They look to make sure you're paying your bills on your side, and they set the parameters up by your credit score. But if you're going to put 20% down, wouldn't it be nice to do it with no income docs and have it close under the EIN of your corporation? So all they see is an inquiry on your personal, not a loan that's sitting on your personal weighting you down. If you're renting properties and you're doing a house a year and you're buying it traditional as your primary and renting as you go, and you're putting those on a rental schedule on your tax returns, you've got income that you can show there. And there's a lot of things, even as business owners, that we write off that can be added back to income, guys. So as long as you can debt ratio qualify, you can do a house a year and build your portfolio that way. But these other products, one in particular that I love is called a DSCR, and it stands for Debt Service Coverage Ratio. And it's just a fancy acronym that means the rent that you're going to receive for that property versus what your payment is. And that's what they're using for your income. And when they divide your rent by your new house payment on it, if that ratio is 1% or higher, it's a good deal. And you put your 20% down on single family housing. If you're buying condos and townhomes, it could be 25-30% that you're putting down, depending on the property. But you're not giving income documents. You're giving your corporation paperwork, your EIN. They're pulling your credit score, and you're showing them you have money to close. And you can also refinance properties using those same programs to cash out as you have equity building and keep it rolling completely under a business portfolio. They even have construction and rehab loans that fall under the same criteria. And a lot of times, guys, these loans are pretty sweet because you're getting up to 80% of the cost to acquire the property and 100% of the rehab or construction costs to build or fix the property. So it's a great way to get into investing and not have to worry about, what's my debt look like on paper.
See, I told y'all we could break this down and make this simple for you. I know we're over some people's head, but I'm going to tell you, when you start looking at your DSCR, your debt-to-income ratios, you really can look at how you can leverage and buy more properties. And I'm telling you, it's not as hard as you think it is. And I can help you overcome that taboo and that fear. You got to chime in, though. And the one thing I'm going to tell you, know the rules. You got to get in these circles. You got to start having these conversations. That's why you need to show up at the Fireside Chats. If you've been missing them, go back and listen to those we had before. They're at all different levels. But my whole thing is to start building the pipeline so you're getting the information and you're able to digest it. Knowledge is what we learn. Wisdom is what we learn when we learn how to apply it. I am trying to drop wisdom on you. She just gave you some key nuggets. I can't even describe. If I had this information when I first started, I think I'd be way farther than I am now. People say I've done a lot, but look, we just opened up our second branch shopping center with the bank in last week. Hats off to TD Bank. I'm giving a shout out to my new tenant. Look, gotta do it. But again, this information is not is out there, but I don't think a lot of people know how to apply it. Right now, you're given nuggets on how to apply it, and all I ask you to do is lean in and share it with someone else. You gotta get a network. We're doing a lot of great things here. We're talking about a lot of key things. Mary, I want to wrap it up, and because we got a few more minutes, about 10 minutes left. I want to wrap it up, but I want to ask a key question. I'm an investor now. We went from a homeowner to now a person owning 4 houses. We told you how to do that. You got that, Jim. But now, Mary, I've got a portfolio of houses. And so now I'm looking to what is the loan structure like when I've got 20 houses I want to refinance, and where should I go look for those lenders at that can do those type of deals? Would it be traditional or non-traditional?
It's going to be non-traditional. And the lenders that do portfolios are getting few and far between. More of your non-traditional are looking at hard money or the DSCR type products to get you in house by house. But those lenders that do the portfolios, they're out there. There is one out of New York that's called Tribeca. They do like anything and everything real estate you can imagine. And they have been around a long time and have some really good products out there for portfolios. And so when he's talking about portfolios, he's talking about, I've got, 20, 30 houses at a time that I want to put under one blanket loan. And that can be done, guys. It's a little tricky. They're still looking at each property appraisal wise individually, because we need to know the values there between all of the properties. But you've got one loan that covers all of this now. And if you're buying to hold them, it's a great way to go, because you're only having to worry about one payment going out each month versus a payment for each of these properties until they're paid off. But whatever your strategy is, get with someone. So when I teach business, it's no different than teaching mortgages. You've got to have your power team, and you got to know who those people are and talk to them, get their advice, get them to help you put a plan together to get started. You need a realtor, you need a lender that you can talk to. You even need a tax professional in your corner, and have these people help you put a plan together that's going to work for your situation and maximize your cash flow. And sometimes the strategy works better to do one loan versus 20 and get one rate versus 20 individual rates that could be up or down depending on when you purchase properties. And you can even refinance using a portfolio loan.
Now I'm gonna drop some knowledge on you, because I'm gonna drop a fact. And if you're out here, and I know I know people that watch me, they have large portfolios. I'm gonna tell you from my personal experience right quick. I'm gonna drop it in. I try and do this every once in a while. I do it more. I do it more when I'm in person with my mentees, but I'm gonna drop it right now because I want people to understand this. So there's some nuances. Getting started, you think it's hard, but the larger you get, the more challenge you come up when it comes to financing. Mary just pointed out a great point in looking at portfolio loans. So if you have a lot of properties and you got to, like, say 15 properties, I'll use about around 15 properties. Now, if all those properties are individual loans, what happens is that you get locked out of financing. Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac traditional financing won't allow you to have that many loans in your name. And if you're the sole owner, that means they still roll up on your Schedule E. Schedule E is on your tax returns because you're the sole owner. And so that becomes a major challenge when you start looking at, now, how do I go from the I think it's 8. I think Freddie Mae, they used to be 10.
Max finance.
10. So
10.
Once you get to 10, now you got to think outside the box, because now all those loans, if you had went the route and get individual loans, now all those loans showing up under your profile, and they said we can't lend to you anymore, and you got a great deal on the hook. So there's ways around that. You've got to learn how to take your business structure. You talked about that earlier, and that's the reason why you want a power team around you that knows the rules. And that's the reason why I'm doing this, because I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I've made and had to skate around and figure out how to do it in the dark. But you have to separate yourself from that using your business structure and your entities. I can show you how to do that. It is not the hardest thing in the world, but it's something that you have to think about your strategy today and not tomorrow. I always tell people, I look at the end going back to the beginning, because if you think that way, you're able to overcome a lot of challenges. But make sure you understand what I'm telling you, because if you get a lot of individual loans, you will find yourself at a point where you're getting capped out. Now, the portfolio loans are great, but remember, when you go to get a portfolio loan, or you're getting the loan on a bunch of properties, your cost of doing that loan just went up. I've had loans when I did a portfolio loan as high as $50,000, because again, you've got your appraisals, you got your fees that come along with that, and you got taxes for that current year. All that goes into your overall financing for that loan. and that can drive that cost up for you. But again, if you got the equity sitting there and you've done the right things and you built that strategy the right way over time, it's not complicated. And like you said, there are lenders that are out there that are doing portfolio loans. But when you go for a portfolio loan, that conversation is totally different from the conversation you have about buying your first home or buying your first 4 homes. That's a different conversation, and you got to be prepared. You want to have a team. I have a team that sits behind me, and I call them my advisor council. When they say yes, I buy. When they say no, I sit. So that's what a good coach is for, and that's what I'm here doing for you right now today. I'm bringing you information. I'm opening doors. I'm giving you channels. I'm telling all my mentees now, I do not want to have you come sit at any table. No, I want to create a room and then let you create the tables that we sit at. Let that sink in. I'm not here to invite you to a table. I'm here to invite you into a room, because inside that room, you'll create the tables. Because this is where the knowledge begins and this is where it starts at. Guys, I hope this has been helpful today, because again, Mary's been in this game for years, man. And we've done a lot of great things together, and we sat in a lot of rooms together. Mary, anything that you want to add to kind of wrap out the day for the first time home buyer? Any secret you want to drop to anyone on the investor side?
Yep, I'm going to drop one small nugget. Whether you're a first time buyer or an investor, guys, we always think about, how to save for that down payment and how to come up with cash that we need to purchase homes. And a lot of times, if we're with a company and an employer, they have 401ks that we can borrow from, but you're going to get penalized and taxed on the money when you take it out. There are things that you can do outside. So as you have extra cash, this is something that I taught for 20 years before I even realized what I was teaching, and I teach it religiously now. There's insurance products out there. Everybody thinks of life insurance to cover when we die, but there are policies out there that are meant for investors. They're tied to the indexes like the S&P 500. That's where your stocks and stuff are housed, and your major companies. And you get to take the advantage of all the good side of the earning of that without the downside of it, because your money stays protected when it's in insurance. You can borrow from yourself once you accumulate cash in there, and it is tax-free money coming out. No tax penalties for using your money. So when you hear people talk about self-banking, they're using these insurance products. They're called Indexed Universal Life. And guys, I teach on that all the time. So hit me up if you want the information. Chris knows how to get a hold of me. But I teach my investors this. When you start making money with those houses, do you want to give it all to Uncle Sam, or do you want to learn how to house it tax-free and borrow from it as you need it? And then you also have living benefits. So if you get sick, you're critically, chronically, or terminally ill and you can't work. And guys, that's happened. At 40 years old, I flatlined. That's why these policies are important to me, because I could pull from it instead of stressing out about bills. And all of my stuff kept flowing while I got better. So there are policies out there that we have not been taught about. They've been around for 175 years. And I teach my folks to start investing in these, because that's how you're going to save tax-free money for your life's purchases.
Guys, look, she just dropped the whole knowledge, whole line. We talked a little bit about using insurance policies. I'm telling you, there's so many ways. When people tell me that I can't do something, I'll automatically tell you, let me tell you how you can do it. Let's look at the situation, trying to figure out. I am a problem solver, because when you start looking at becoming wealthy, you learn how to solve problems. And I've got really good at solving problems. But I'll tell you the key secret. If you lean in for a second, I'm going to tell you the secret how to solve good problems. Get around good people that know how to solve problems. So if you get around problem solvers, guess what happens? You become expert at solving problems. Mary, I want to thank you so much for joining me and being able to drop this knowledge. Again, this is what Fireside Chats are about. If you're watching this, I hope you've grown a little bit today. This is only a snippet of the information that we can give you. But what I want to do is make sure that you follow up, chime in, and tune in. We got some trainings that are coming out. If you watch my Instagram, we're about to drop a new ebook. If you have not seen and not heard about this new ebook, you got to get it. The mindset one was amazing, but the next one coming out is going to be even more powerful. We got some trainings I'm designing around the same topics and tidbits. but I am going to continue to bring quality content and information to you every single week, because people like Mary exist. You need to get to know them. And again, if you want to solve problems and do great things, get around people that are doing that. I'm so excited. Again, this has been a blessing month for me. Again, we launched out Site One with Chase, opening up last year, and this year we opened up TD Bank right across the street on Basement Road. And guess what, guys? I got a third development coming. I'm not stopping. I'm right here. I'm going to teach you how to grow and win at the same time. But again, what I always say, if you want to be successful at this game, you got to know the rules. Mary, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you please tell them how to get in contact with you?
Yes, you can find me on social media at Project Rent No More, or you can reach me at 704-507-3893. Guys, hit me up. You can text me, you can call me, and if I don't answer, I'm just sitting with someone else, I will get right back to you.
Wow. Mary, again, as always, it's always great to call you a friend, but also a guru in this business. And I've always loved working with you. And you're like my first person I'm calling when I got problems. So thanks a lot again, as always, Mary. Guys,
Thank you
tuning
so
out.
much.
Awesome. Y'all have a great day. Again, Fireside Chat. Join in next Tuesday. We got a great conversation. If you miss out, tell a friend. Let them join because you didn't. Y'all take care. I'm out. Got a lot of comments coming in. Try to pop them up there right quick before we close out. Here y'all go. We're done. Bye. Hold on a second, Mary.
Okay.